In the spring of 1945, World War II was coming to an end. An estimated 250,000 Germans were evacuated to Denmark. Jörg Baden was born on September 19, 1939. He was 5 years old when his family escaped the Red Army.
On the 1st of May, I was out playing with my brother in the park just opposite where we lived. And my dad came and called us, "Come home, we have to run away." We didn't know what was happening. It came absolutely out of the blue. And in fact, we took what we had. My parents, of course, they were informed about things. And we ran to the harbour and we got a place on a small Navy boat. And when we were leaving the harbour, the Russian tanks were turning round the corner and firing after us, but we were unharmed. And on the Baltic Sea then, in the open sea, we were attacked by a Russian plane, but that was again was harmless.
After a stopover in Kiel and Haderslev, where Jörg was hospitalized for 3 months with serious illness, his family were accommodated in Denmark's largest refugee camp in Oksbøl. A place that at some point had estimated 35,000 refugees living.
Well, there's facilities for amusement, as the films that you mentioned that were shown. School is organized for the children. There's a hospital, as we know. There was a church. We could go to church service on Sundays, and there was occasionally a Catholic priest. Then there was a Protestant priest.
Jörg was just 5 years old when he started his 2-year stay in the refugee camp in Oksbøl. However, his grandfather, who was also a refugee in the camp, wrote a diary that Jörg can use to support his memory.
So life was made as normal for people as possible. So there was nothing worrying or spectacular happening. It was a question of routine.
While living in the refugee camp, Jörg was active with the Boy Scouts. It gave him some memorable experiences.
I must have been one of the smallest of the boys, but I remember that they had outings, not just in the camp, but we were allowed to leave the camp. We went to the seaside, which was quite a walk from here, and I remember doing it on my own to the sea, but back home I had to be carried. That is very vivid, and that was a great experience, and it was a breath of freedom, really, because we didn't feel we were prisoners. We felt we were accommodated, although leaving the camp was organized, that was regulated. We couldn't just do what we wanted. That was quite understandable under the circumstances.
Becoming a refugee changed a lot for the family. Especially Jörg's mother had difficulty leaving Germany.
It was, for my mum, it must have been a fall from heaven into hell within 24 hours.
After some time in the camp, a new question came up between Jörg's parents. Where would they live when they should return to Germany? As Jörg wrote in an email correspondence, "My father was adamant not to return to Warnemünde, as he was certain that he, perhaps with the complete family, would be deported to Russia to work for their industry and research." Jörg's father had worked for Heinkel in the aircraft industry and had heard from colleagues that the Russians were deporting everybody of their kind they could lay their hands on. Jörg's mother wanted to return to the place she had left. It first occurred to Jörg and his brother years later how big this subject might have been. In the end, the Baden family decided to return to Duisburg in the Rhineland, a decision Jörg is very grateful for.
And if I look at my own life, I would probably have not been able to go to university, maybe even to grammar school, because in the GDR it was a class-ridden system. If the SED decided you were not allowed to, then you would have had to lead a different life. No, for us it was fortunate and correct that my parents made the decision.
Although much of Jörg's story is based on the grandfather's diary, he also clearly remembers own experiences from the camp where he was a young boy.
I, as a small child, remember we spoke to one of the Danish guards, and for the fun of the boys, he fired a warning rocket into the air, and we just loved it, and he was just friendly.